Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. In a world where everyone is shouting, silence is the loudest sound in the room. When you stop reacting, you start ruling. Every word you hold back becomes a weapon of strength. Every pause becomes a message of power. This is not about being quiet. It's about mastering yourself so deeply that nothing outside can move you. This is the art of self-control. This is the power of silence. Chapter 1. Stop reacting. Start observing. You've been trained your entire life to react. React to insults. React to noise. React to pain. React to pressure. And every time you react, you lose. You lose control. You lose direction. You lose power. That's the truth most people never face. Because reacting feels natural. It feels instant. It feels justified. But that moment of reaction is the moment you hand over your strength. The first rule of control, the first rule of mastery is this: stop reacting. Start observing. When you react, emotion leads. When you observe, awareness leads. And the one who sees clearly always wins. The world trains you to respond instantly. Every notification, every argument, every insult. We live in a culture that worships speed and ignores wisdom. But silence is faster than words. Observation is sharper than emotion. You have a choice. In every moment of pressure, you can react or you can observe. That's the key. The person who reacts becomes predictable. The person who observes becomes powerful. Predictable people get manipulated. Powerful people stay centered. You don't need their approval. You don't need to prove your point. You need to see what's really happening. When something challenges you, your first impulse will be to fight, to explain, to defend. Don't. Pause. Watch. The moment you pause, you reclaim control. That pause is your weapon. That pause is your shield. That pause is your power. Say it with me. Observe. Don't react. Watch. Don't speak. That's your mantra now. Say it again. Observe. Don't react. Watch. Don't speak. Every time someone tries to pull you into their chaos, you'll repeat it. Every time life tries to drag you into noise, you'll repeat it. Because control doesn't come from what you say, it comes from what you withhold. Let's make it practical. Imagine this. You're in a meeting. Everyone's tense. The project is failing. People are pointing fingers, raising voices, defending themselves. And you stay quiet. You watch. You see who's insecure. You see who's fearful. You see who's leading from ego. You take notes in your mind, not with your mouth. And when you finally speak, every word carries weight. That's power. Not because you were silent, but because you were observing. Leaders who win don't react first. They observe first. Because reacting is about emotion. Observing is about information. Information beats emotion every time. But let's be honest. Silence is hard. Observation feels unnatural when your blood is boiling. It takes discipline to stay still when your ego screams to fight back. That's the battle. And that's where growth happens. You have to reprogram yourself. Every time you feel anger rise, replace reaction with reflection. Every time someone tests your patience, breathe instead of explode. Every time life provokes you, choose stillness over chaos. You're not doing it to appear calm. You're doing it to become calm. It's not about pretending. It's about transforming. Think of the strongest people you've ever known. They don't yell. They don't chase. They don't beg. They observe. They read energy, not words. They measure tone, not sentences. They look beyond the surface. Because when you train your mind to observe, you see what others can't. You see intention. You see fear hiding behind arrogance. You see weakness behind aggression. That's when silence becomes dangerous, because you're no longer guessing, you're knowing. Here's the secret. When you stopped reacting, you make others reveal themselves. Try it. When someone insults you and you stay silent, they start to over-explain. When someone pressures you and you don't move, they expose their own insecurity. When someone tries to provoke you and you just watch, they lose their power. Because your reaction was their goal. Your calm destroys their plan. That's why silence is feared. It's control, it's clarity, it's confidence. You don't need to raise your voice when you've mastered your mind. You don't need to prove yourself when you've proven your composure. That's the level you're aiming for.
Here's the truth most never realize. Reactivity is slavery. Observation is freedom. When you react, the world owns you. When you observe, you own yourself. And that's what this book is about. Ownership of the self. You can't lead anyone until you can lead your emotions. You can't control outcomes until you control impulses. Every time you stop yourself from reacting, you gain strength. Every time you choose silence over chaos, you grow discipline. Every time you observe, you evolve. This isn't just emotional control, it's mental evolution. So how do you practice this? Start small. When someone cuts you off in traffic, don't react. Observe. When someone disagrees with you, don't argue. Observe. When someone disrespects you, don't retaliate. Observe. You're not ignoring them, you're analyzing them. You're learning what moves people, what triggers them, what weakens them. And through observation, you begin to understand that most people aren't your enemies. They're just reactive. They're slaves to their emotions. And you're not. You've chosen something higher. Here's another truth. Observation creates awareness. Awareness creates power. Power creates peace. That's the chain of mastery. You can't skip the first link. You can't have peace if you react to every threat. You can't have power if you need to prove it. You earn peace through self-control. You earn respect through silence, because silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of strength. So from this moment forward, your goal is simple. Respond less, observe more. Talk less, think more. React less, reflect more. You have nothing to prove. You have everything to see. Let others waste their energy explaining themselves. Let others destroy their peace with emotion. You will be the calm in the storm. That's your edge. That's your advantage. That's your new identity. Because the one who observes always wins. You have a choice. Every single day, you'll be tested. You'll be provoked. You'll be challenged. And you'll remember this. Observe. Don't react. Watch. Don't speak. When the world gets loud, you get quiet. When emotions rise, you stay grounded. When chaos begins, you center yourself. That's not weakness. That's power. That's not apathy. That's awareness. You're training for mastery, not comfort. You've taken the first step. You've learned the first rule of control. Silence before speech. Awareness before action. Now that you've learned to stop reacting and start observing, it's time to take the next step, to learn how silence itself can command influence. Because watching is power, but using silence to lead, that's mastery. Next chapter, The Noise of Weak Men. Chapter 2, The Noise of Weak Men. The world is loud, too loud. Everyone's talking, everyone's posting, everyone's desperate to be seen, to be heard, to be validated. But here's the truth. The louder they are, the weaker they are. Weak men hide behind noise. Strong men hide behind silence. Noise is a cover. It's what the undisciplined use to disguise their insecurity. Because when a man doesn't have inner control, he compensates with outer volume. That's the world we live in, a world of constant noise, meaningless words, impulsive opinions, endless talking with no thought, no purpose, no restraint. And every time you join the noise, you lower your frequency. You surrender your power. Most people speak to be heard, not to be understood. That's the problem. They don't speak to add value, they speak to fill silence. They speak to feel significant. But silence doesn't need to feel significant. It already is. When you open your mouth too easily, you teach the world to ignore you. When you stay quiet until it matters, you teach the world to respect you. That's the key. Powerful people don't fight for attention. They earn it through presence. The noise of weak men is everywhere. It's in the office, where the insecure employee interrupts every conversation to prove he knows something. It's in relationships, where people argue not to solve but to win. It's on social media, where people shout opinions they don't even live by. Noise is not communication. Noise is compensation. It's not about being vocal. It's about being strategic. It's not about expression. It's about control. You have a choice. You can speak like everyone else, constantly, carelessly, emotionally. Or you can rise above and let silence define your strength. When discipline is absent, words become noise. Every word you speak has a cost. Every sentence spends your energy. Every argument burns your focus. Most people don't realize that. They talk until they're empty. They pour their thoughts into the void, hoping someone will validate them. But discipline means conserving your energy. It means understanding that words are currency. Spend them wisely. When you speak without thought, you devalue your voice. When you speak with restraint, you amplify your impact. That's the difference between noise and command. Noise gets ignored. Command gets followed. Think about this in the real world. There's a crisis at work. Everything's falling apart. Everyone's panicking, shouting, blaming each other. And then there's one person who says nothing. He watches. He listens. He's calm while everyone else collapses. When he finally speaks, the room goes silent. Why? Because he's not part of the noise. He's the one in control. He's the one people turn to when it matters. You see, silence separates the thinkers from the reactors. It separates the disciplined from the desperate. Noise is reactive. Silence is strategic. Weak men think volume equals strength. They think confidence is loud, but real confidence is quiet. Real power doesn't explain itself. A lion doesn't roar to prove he's a lion. He roars to signal dominance, and then he returns to silence. That's how power works. You don't need to prove it every second. You just need to be it. Stop explaining yourself. Stop defending yourself. Stop justifying your existence to people who haven't earned your silence. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You need to master restraint.
The problem is that most people can't handle silence. It makes them uncomfortable. It forces them to face their own thoughts, their own insecurities, their own weakness. That's why they fill every space with noise. They gossip, they complain, they debate endlessly about things that don't matter. Because silence demands self-awareness, and self-awareness is terrifying. But that's exactly why you need it. If you want to master yourself, you must first master your silence. If you can't sit quietly with your own mind, you'll never control your reactions in the world. That's the truth. That's the discipline. From today, make silence your training ground. Before you speak, pause. Before you post, pause. Before you argue, Pause. Ask yourself, is this noise or is this power? If it's noise, stay silent. If it's power, speak with precision. That's how you separate yourself from the weak. You'll notice something powerful happen when you practice this. People start paying attention. Your words start to land differently. Your energy becomes sharper. Because silence builds anticipation, and anticipation builds respect. Weak men are loud because they're scared of being ignored. Strong men are silent because they know they can't be forgotten. Let that sink in. When you don't chase attention, attention finds you. When you stop proving your worth multiplies. When you stop talking, people start listening. That's the paradox of power. The less you say, the more you control. So here's what you do. Cut the noise. Stop over-explaining. Stop reacting to everything you hear. Stop posting for approval. Speak only when you add value. Every time you talk, make it count. Make it short, clear, and necessary. Use silence as pressure. When you don't respond immediately, people start revealing themselves. They fill the silence with truth. They show their intentions. That's how you gain information. That's how you gain leverage. That's how you gain control. You don't need to dominate the room. You just need to command it. And command doesn't come from noise. It comes from presence. So stop shouting. Stop proving. Stop competing with weak men for attention. While they're busy being loud, you'll be busy being legendary. Let them chase the echo. You'll become the voice that remains after the noise dies. Remember this, words without control are weakness. Silence with intent is power. It's not about being quiet, it's about being conscious. It's not about avoiding people, it's about understanding them. It's not about pride, it's about precision. You have a choice. You can stay in the noise and be forgotten, or you can master your silence and be remembered. That's your decision. That's your discipline. Now you've learned the truth. The noise of weak men is the soundtrack of insecurity. You've learned how silence separates you from chaos. But silence isn't just a tool for survival. It's a strategy for influence. It's the foundation of authority, focus, and respect. You've quieted the noise. Now it's time to build discipline inside that quiet. Next chapter, silence is a strategy, not a personality.
Chapter 3. Silence is a strategy, not a personality. Silence is not shyness. Silence is not fear. Silence is strategy. You have to understand that difference because the world has trained you to believe that silence means weakness, that if you don't speak first, you'll be forgotten, that if you don't explain yourself, you'll be misunderstood, that if you don't defend yourself, you'll be destroyed. That's a lie. The truth is this: when you learn to use silence with intent, you become untouchable. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is pressure. Silence is mystery. Silence is control. Silence confuses. Silence controls. Silence commands. That's the formula. That's the game. You see, most people talk to feel powerful, but powerful people stay silent to create power. Think about that for a moment. Every word you say gives information away. Every explanation reveals your emotions. Every reaction shows your weakness. But silence reveals nothing. And when people can't read you, they can't control you. That's the key. You don't need to tell people who you are. You need to make them feel who you are. And silence does that better than any speech ever could. The mistake most people make is this: they confuse being quiet with being powerless. But quiet and powerless are not the same. Quiet is calculated. Quiet is intentional. Quiet is strength restrained, not strength absent.
Weak people are quiet because they're afraid. Strong people are quiet because they're focused. It's not about shyness, it's about strategy. When you're silent, you take control of the tempo. You slow the world down. You shift the balance of power in every conversation. Watch what happens when someone asks you a question and you pause before answering. They get uncomfortable. They fill the space. They start revealing more than they meant to. That's silence as a weapon. You didn't say a word, but you already won. Silence confuses, because people can't stand not knowing what you think. Silence controls, because when others speak too much, they give you the map to their emotions. Silence commands, because those who don't rush to speak appear certain, stable, and powerful. Say that again. Silence confuses, silence controls, silence commands. Repeat it until it becomes instinct, because it's not just a phrase, it's a mindset. Let's get practical. How do you use silence as a strategy in your real life? In conversation, stop trying to fill the air. Stop competing to talk. Let people speak. Let them reveal their motives. Let them expose their fears. You don't need to dominate the conversation. You need to own it. And ownership doesn't come from noise. It comes from presence. In conflict, when emotions run high, silence disarms the aggressor. People expect resistance. When you don't react, they lose control. You take the power by refusing to play the emotional game. In leadership, leaders who speak constantly lose authority. Leaders who only speak when necessary become legends. Every pause before you speak builds gravity. Every moment of restraint builds respect. You don't need to be the loudest. You need to be the most intentional. Here's a truth few can handle. You don't owe explanations to everyone. You don't need to justify your silence. You don't need to prove that you're thinking. Weak people chase understanding. Strong people command interpretation. When you stop explaining, people start imagining. And imagination builds more respect than explanation ever could. You become a mystery, and mystery breeds power. That's the strategy. Look at history. The most powerful leaders, warriors, thinkers, they mastered the art of silence. Marcus Aurelius wrote his thoughts in private, not in speeches. Bruce Lee said, "Empty your mind." Steve Jobs was famous for his pauses. He made silence work for him. Silence is not a lack of communication. It's the highest form of communication. Because silence says, I'm in control. I choose my words. I am not desperate for attention. That's what silence communicates, without a single word.
But silence is not passive. Silence requires control. Silence requires confidence. Silence requires emotional discipline. You have to be able to sit inside the discomfort of not responding. You have to be able to let people misunderstand you and still stay calm. You have to be able to delay your reaction until you've mastered your emotion. That's power. Anyone can talk. Few can wait. It's not about holding back your voice. It's about holding back your ego. Let me tell you this. Silence will test you. People will call you cold. They'll call you detached. They'll call you distant. Let them. They're projecting their discomfort. They want you to react so they can feel in control again. Don't give them that power. You don't need their permission. You don't need their validation. You just need discipline. Because silence without discipline is awkward. But silence with discipline, that's power. When you walk into a room, don't rush to speak. When someone attacks you, don't rush to defend. When life pressures you, don't rush to move. Pause. Breathe. Observe. Your stillness is your signal. Your silence is your message. And when you do speak, make every word land like a hammer. Because people remember impact, not volume.
You have to unlearn what society taught you. You don't win by being heard, you win by being effective. You don't win by being seen, you win by being respected. Silence creates both. Stop treating silence like a weakness. Start treating it like a weapon. Because silence is a decision. It's a move. It's a tactic. It's what separates emotion from calculation. It's what separates reaction from response. It's what separates noise from power. So from now on, remember, silence confuses, silence controls, silence commands. You don't speak unless it's necessary. You don't explain unless it's strategic. You don't react unless it serves your purpose. You speak less, but you say more. You reveal less, but you know more. You move less, but you control more. That's the paradox of power. Silence isn't your personality, it's your plan. It's your discipline in action. You use it to protect your energy, to study your surroundings, to control your outcomes. You use it to project confidence, not insecurity. You use it to dominate without ever appearing aggressive. Because true dominance doesn't shout, it waits. You've learned now that silence is not who you are, it's how you win. It's not about changing your personality, it's about sharpening your strategy. You've learned how to hold your words, how to weaponize stillness, how to turn silence into strength. But silence is only half the equation, because control doesn't end at the tongue, it begins in the mind. And now, it's time to go deeper. You've mastered the pause, now it's time to master your emotions inside that pause. Next chapter, emotional mastery begins in the pause. But silence is not passive. Silence requires control. Silence requires confidence. Silence requires emotional discipline. You have to be able to sit inside the discomfort of not responding. You have to be able to let people misunderstand you and still stay calm. You have to be able to delay your reaction until you've mastered your emotion. That's power. Anyone can talk. Few can wait. It's not about holding back your voice. It's about holding back your ego. Let me tell you this. Silence will test you. People will call you cold. They'll call you detached. They'll call you distant. Let them. They're projecting their discomfort. They want you to react so they can feel in control again. Don't give them that power. You don't need their permission. You don't need their validation. You just need discipline. Because silence without discipline is awkward. But silence with discipline, that's power. When you walk into a room, don't rush to speak. When someone attacks you, don't rush to defend. When life pressures you, don't rush to move. Pause. Breathe. Observe. Your stillness is your signal. Your silence is your message. And when you do speak, make every word land like a hammer. Because people remember impact, not volume. You have to unlearn what society taught you. You don't win by being heard, you win by being effective. You don't win by being seen, you win by being respected. Silence creates both. Stop treating silence like a weakness. Start treating it like a weapon. Because silence is a decision. It's a move. It's a tactic. It's what separates emotion from calculation. It's what separates reaction from response. It's what separates noise from power. So from now on, remember, silence confuses, silence controls, silence commands. You don't speak unless it's necessary. You don't explain unless it's strategic. You don't react unless it serves your purpose. You speak less, but you say more. You reveal less, but you know more. You move less, but you control more. That's the paradox of power. Silence isn't your personality, it's your plan. It's your discipline in action. You use it to protect your energy, to study your surroundings, to control your outcomes. You use it to project confidence, not insecurity. You use it to dominate without ever appearing aggressive. Because true dominance doesn't shout, it waits. You've learned now that silence is not who you are, it's how you win. It's not about changing your personality, it's about sharpening your strategy. You've learned how to hold your words, how to weaponize stillness, how to turn silence into strength. But silence is only half the equation, because control doesn't end at the tongue, it begins in the mind. And now, it's time to go deeper. You've mastered the pause, now it's time to master your emotions inside that pause. Next chapter, emotional mastery begins in the pause.
Start small. Someone cuts you off in traffic? Pause. Someone criticizes you? Pause. Someone disagrees with you? Pause. You're not ignoring the emotion, you're studying it. You're mastering it. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why? What's the right move? Not the emotional one, but the strategic one. That's how you start building emotional strength. Because the goal isn't to stop feeling, the goal is to stop reacting. It's not about emotion, it's about discipline. Think about the most powerful people you've met. They don't rush to anger. They don't flinch under pressure. They move slow. They speak slow. They decide slow. That's not because they're slow thinkers, it's because they've mastered the pause. They understand that silence buys clarity, and clarity buys control. When you react fast, you make emotional decisions. When you pause, you make intelligent ones. And in life, the intelligent always outlast the emotional. That's the law. But make no mistake, mastering the pause is uncomfortable. It feels unnatural because you're rewiring instinct. You're breaking emotional addiction. You're learning to breathe inside your own storm. Most people will never do that. They'll keep living at the mercy of their moods, up 1 minute, down the next. Powerful when happy, powerless when angry. But not you. You're different. You're building an inner system that doesn't depend on circumstances. That's mastery. That's control. You have a choice. Stay reactive like the crowd, or become composed like the few. Emotional mastery is the foundation of real strength, because strength isn't how much you can lift, it's how much you can carry without losing control. Can you stay grounded when life hits you? Can you think clearly when people betray you? Can you choose peace when chaos surrounds you? That's the test, and the answer is the pause. Every time you hold that pause, you win. Every time you choose stillness over rage, you evolve. Every time you breathe instead of breaking, you rise. You're not avoiding life. You're commanding it. The longer the pause, the more powerful you become. Because in that pause lives patience. In that pause lives wisdom. In that pause lives control. The pause is where emotion transforms into clarity, where impulse transforms into intelligence, where chaos transforms into calm. And that's the difference between power and peace. So remember this. When emotion rises, pause. When anger burns, pause. When fear speaks, pause. You don't need to act immediately. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to master the space. Because that space is where your strength lives.
That's where your freedom begins. You have a choice, reaction or reflection. You already know which one leads to power. You've learned now that emotional mastery doesn't start with the heart, it starts with the pause. You've learned that control is not about force, it's about awareness. You've learned that every breath you take between emotion and action is another layer of discipline built inside you. But mastery isn't just about control. It's about using that control to move with purpose, to do less, but win more. You've learned to pause. Now, you'll learn to act only when it counts. Next chapter, the power of restraint. Win by doing less, not more.
Chapter 5. Speak less, influence more. Words are power, but too many words destroy power. The more you speak, the less people listen. The less you speak, the more they lean in. That's the paradox of influence. Every unnecessary word weakens your impact. Every extra explanation dilutes your authority. You don't need to say everything. You need to say what matters. Fewer words, stronger words, timeless words. That's the code. That's the rule. That's how the greats move. Most people talk because they're uncomfortable with silence. They fill the space because they fear being unseen. They explain too much, defend too often, justify too quickly. But influence doesn't come from overtalking. It comes from precision. Powerful people choose their words like a warrior chooses his strikes, rare, measured, and deliberate. They don't waste motion, they don't waste breath. Because every word you speak should build something: credibility, respect, direction, control. If it doesn't build, it destroys. That's the key. Think about the people you admire most. The leaders, the thinkers, the icons. Marcus Aurelius wrote short, deliberate meditations, not speeches. Steve Jobs paused more than he spoke. He used silence to sharpen his message, not soften it. And when he did speak, every word hit like a hammer. Because great communicators don't talk more, they talk better. They speak from stillness, not from insecurity. They speak to move people, not to impress them. That's influence. When you talk too much, you reveal too much. When you talk less, you reveal strength. You have to understand this. Every word you speak teaches people how to treat you. If you talk constantly, they tune you out. If you speak rarely, they lean in. If you explain yourself over and over, you lose respect. If you let your silence carry weight, they respect your presence before your words. Your goal is not to be heard by everyone. Your goal is to be remembered by the right ones. So how do you do that? How do you speak less and influence more? Here's how. Before you speak, ask why. Are you talking to contribute or just to fill space? If it's not necessary, don't say it. Because silence says more than meaningless noise ever will. When you speak, use precision. Say what you mean, no fluff, no fillers, no explanations that dilute your message. The shorter the sentence, the stronger the delivery. After you speak, stop. Don't over-explain, don't repeat yourself. Let your words hang in the air. Let silence do the rest. Influence is not about dominating the room. It's about controlling the rhythm of attention. Here's the truth. The loudest person rarely has the most power. The calmest one does. You've seen it before, in meetings, in arguments, in relationships. One person talks endlessly, pleading to be understood. The other listens quietly, says a few words, and ends the discussion. Why? Because the quiet one has control. They don't waste energy. They don't seek validation. They speak only when it matters, and that's what gives their words gravity. You don't need to say everything that crosses your mind. You don't need to explain every decision. You don't need to prove that you're right. Your silence will prove it for you.
Because silence creates tension, and tension creates respect. People remember those who make them think, not those who make them tired. That's the essence of influence. It's not about words, it's about weight. Every time you open your mouth, you either gain weight or lose it.
You have a choice. You can speak like the crowd, fast, reactive, endless, or you can speak like the few, calm, intentional, unforgettable. Because it's not about volume, it's about discipline. Fewer words, stronger words, timeless words. Repeat that until it becomes instinct. Let me give you a real-world picture. In business, there's the employee who talks at every meeting. He wants to sound intelligent, so he adds something to every topic. He's loud, visible, but forgettable. Then there's the quiet strategist. He listens more than he speaks. He takes notes, observes patterns, studies reactions, and when he finally speaks, everyone stops, because his words carry weight. Who do you think earns more respect? Who do you think gets promoted? Who do you think leads? Exactly, the one who speaks less but says more. There's a psychological truth here. The less you say, the more people fill in the blanks. They start assigning meaning, intelligence, and depth to your silence. They project power onto you because mystery demands attention. You don't have to prove yourself with words when your presence already speaks. You don't have to talk about your confidence when your restraint shows it. Remember this: every sentence you skip is energy saved. Every silence you hold is presence built. That's the discipline of influence. So, here's your new rule. Don't speak to relieve discomfort. Don't speak to look smart. Don't speak to win arguments. Speak to move outcomes. Speak to shift energy. Speak to lead. Everything else, delete it. And when you do speak, make it clean. Make it powerful. Make it final. Your voice should feel like a statement, not a question. Your tone should say, "I know," not "Do you agree?" That's how leaders speak. That's how thinkers move. That's how influence is built. You don't need to be poetic. You need to be precise. You don't need to be loud. You need to be clear. You don't need to talk often. You need to talk right. That's the art of quiet power. Influence through restraint. It's not about speaking to everyone. It's about speaking so powerfully that when you do, no one forgets. Fewer words, stronger words, timeless words. Let that guide you from now on. Because words are not cheap, they're currency. Spend them carelessly, and you go broke. Spend them wisely, and you build empires. So protect your language. Guard your mouth like a vault. Speak with precision. Speak with purpose. Speak with presence. That's how you build influence that outlasts attention. You've learned now that restraint in speech builds power. You've learned that the fewer words you use, the more control you gain. You've learned that silence is not the absence of communication, it's the foundation of respect. But there's another layer of discipline. One that doesn't just involve your words, but your focus. Because silence means nothing if your attention is divided. You've mastered your speech. Now it's time to master your mind. Next chapter, the silent discipline of focus. Chapter 6, the silent discipline of focus. Noise is the enemy of greatness. Silence is the weapon of the disciplined. That's the truth. In a world where everyone is drowning in distraction, Silence has become a superpower. Most people can't focus for 5 minutes without checking their phone, switching tabs, or chasing stimulation. They call it multitasking. But it's not multitasking, it's self-destruction. Because every distraction steals something from you. It steals your attention. It steals your depth. It steals your life. The ones who win in this world are not the loudest, they're the most focused. Noise is distraction. Silence is focus. That's the law. When your mind is noisy, your vision is foggy. When your mind is silent, your path becomes clear. You can't create something meaningful from chaos. You can't build strength in a storm. You need stillness. You need space. You need silence. That's the key. Focus doesn't live in the noise of notifications. It lives in the silence of discipline. You have a choice. You can keep chasing every shiny distraction that pops up in front of you, or you can go to war for your focus. Because make no mistake, focus is a war, and your attention is the battlefield. Every app, every advertisement, every headline, it's all fighting for your attention. And every time you lose focus, you lose progress. You can't build an empire when your mind is scattered. You can't master your craft if you can't sit still. You can't become powerful if you can't be alone. That's why silence is not just peaceful, it's productive. In silence, your mind becomes a weapon, sharp, dangerous, and clear. In silence, ideas connect. In silence, direction forms. In silence, you return to yourself. That's where power lives. Not in noise, not in chaos, but in clarity. Here's what most people don't understand. Focus isn't about working harder. It's about cutting deeper. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing what matters and eliminating the rest. Because discipline isn't addition, it's subtraction. You don't need more time, you need fewer distractions. You don't need more motivation, you need less noise. It's not about energy, it's about attention. Attention is your most valuable asset. Guard it like your life depends on it, because it does. Here's what you do. Step 1. Build a ritual of quiet. Every morning, before the world wakes up, claim your silence. No phone, no noise, no input. Sit with your thoughts. Plan your day in stillness. Let your mind breathe before the world drowns it. Because if you don't start your day with intention, the world will start it for you, with noise, demands, and distractions. That's the difference between leaders and followers. Leaders create space. Followers fill it. Step 2. Create deep work blocks. Focus is built through repetition, not intensity. Choose blocks of time where you eliminate everything that doesn't matter. No phone, no social media, no interruptions. Just you, your craft, and silence. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will resist. It will crave stimulation. It will want to check, to scroll, to escape. Don't. Stay still. That resistance, that craving for distraction, that's weakness leaving your mind. Every time you resist it, you grow stronger. Every time you stay still, your mind sharpens. Every time you choose silence, you reclaim control. Step 3. Build phone-off hours. If you can't go an hour without checking your phone, you're not in control, your impulses are. You don't need to be available to the world 24/7. You need to be available to your purpose. Silence your devices, silence your surroundings, silence your excuses. Because when the phone goes off,
the mind turns on. It's not about rejecting technology. It's about reclaiming authority. You control the tool, not the other way around. You have to train your focus like an athlete trains their body. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens through repetition, failure, and consistency. Every time you pull yourself back to silence, you're building mental muscle. Every time you resist distraction, you're increasing your capacity for depth.
Every time you choose focus over noise, you're separating yourself from 99% of people. Because 99% are addicted to noise. They can't sit in silence without feeling lost. They need constant stimulation just to feel alive. But silence is where the 1% live. That's where mastery is born. That's where greatness grows. Remember this truth. Your focus is your future. Whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on noise, you get confusion. If you focus on discipline, you get power. Your mind is a garden. Every distraction is a weed. Every moment of silence is sunlight. What you feed grows. That's the law of focus. Let me make this even simpler. Focus is not a feeling, it's a decision. You decide what matters. You decide what deserves your time. You decide when to say no. Because every yes you give to distraction is a no to your destiny. You don't need their permission to go silent. You don't need to explain why you disappeared for a while. You don't owe anyone your attention. That's yours to give and yours to protect. Here's the secret no one wants to admit. You can't reach peace if your attention is scattered. You can't reach excellence if your focus is fragmented. The greats, the ones who built legacies, they all practice the same ritual. Isolation, silence, deep work. They weren't always louder, they were simply more disciplined. They cut out the unnecessary. They mastered their focus, and because of that, they changed the world. You can do the same, but first you have to earn silence. Because silence doesn't happen by accident, it happens by choice. So make the choice. Turn down the volume on the world, turn up the discipline in your mind. Every time you choose silence, you sharpen your weapon. Every time you choose stillness, you build power. Every time you choose focus, you step closer to mastery. Noise is distraction. Silence is focus. Say it again. Noise is distraction. Silence is focus. Engrave it in your mind. You've learned now that silence isn't passive, it's productive. It's not weakness, it's weaponry. You've learned how to cut through noise, how to build rituals of quiet, and how to transform silence into focus. But now it's time to take that focus into the battlefield of conflict, where chaos meets composure. Because staying calm when things are easy is one thing. Staying calm when the world tests you, that's mastery. You've learned to focus in peace. Now you will learn to stay silent in war. Next chapter, the power of non-reaction in conflict. Chapter 7. The power of non-reaction in conflict. Conflict reveals character. Anyone can stay calm when things are easy, but who you are when challenged, that's who you really are. Most people lose themselves the moment tension rises. Their emotions explode. Their ego takes control. Their focus disappears. And in that instant, they hand their power away. Because in every conflict, personal, professional, or internal, the one who stays calm controls the outcome. That's the key. The louder one gets attention. The calmer one gets control. You have a choice. React like everyone else or rise above everyone else. Because the truth is simple. Silence disarms aggression. When you refuse to react, the enemy loses direction.
Most people think winning an argument means saying the last word. It doesn't. Winning means keeping your peace, keeping your clarity, keeping your control. Because when you lose control, you've already lost the fight. You can't be logical when you're emotional. You can't make good decisions when your ego's in charge. That's why discipline in conflict is not about dominating. It's about mastering yourself. When you master your inner reaction, you master every external situation. That's the law. Think about a skilled negotiator. They don't argue, they don't rush. They listen, they observe, they wait. They let the other side talk themselves into exposure. They watch emotion destroy the opponent's leverage. Then, when the timing is perfect, they strike with calm precision. Because patience is power. Non-reaction is strategy. Stillness is control. You don't need to prove your point in every argument. You need to protect your position. And you protect it through silence. The same principle applies to martial artists. A true fighter doesn't flinch. They don't attack wildly. They let the opponent burn energy, lose rhythm, and open weaknesses. They wait for the moment, then they move. Because reaction is emotion, but timing, that's intelligence. The calm fighter always wins. The reactive one always falls. That's not just combat, that's life. You have to understand, conflict is not about the other person, it's about you. Your reaction defines your rank. Weak men fight every battle they're invited to. Strong men choose their wars wisely and win them silently. You don't need to fight every insult. You don't need to respond to every attack. You don't need to react to every challenge. You need to conserve your energy for battles that matter. Because real strength isn't proven in noise. It's proven in restraint. When someone attacks you, they want a reaction. That's their goal. They feed on your emotion. Your anger is their validation. Your defensiveness is their control. Your reaction is their victory. But when you don't react, the game ends. When you stay calm, they lose direction. They don't know what to do with your silence. Because silence is not weakness. It's confusion for the weak. That's the secret of power. Let others lose themselves, you stay composed. You have a choice. Every argument, every insult, every test, it's a moment of decision. Do you let emotion lead, or do you lead emotion? That's the difference between chaos and control. You can't stop people from provoking you, but you can stop giving them power. When you stay calm, you stay untouchable. They can insult your name, but they can't touch your peace. They can attack your ego, but they can't move your center. That's real dominance.
Here's the practical truth. Most conflict dies without fuel. If you don't react, it ends. If you don't feed the fire, it burns out. If you don't respond, they run out of power. Try this. Next time someone tries to provoke you, stay silent. Watch what happens. They'll escalate. They'll get louder because your silence exposes their lack of control. Eventually, they'll collapse under their own noise. You win without saying a word. That's mastery. In your personal life, this principle changes everything. In arguments with family, friends, or partners, don't defend. Observe. Let silence speak. Let calm be your language. Because reacting emotionally to everything means you're still being controlled by everything. You're not supposed to be a puppet of your moods. You're supposed to be the master of them. You don't owe anyone your reaction. You don't need their permission to stay calm. That's self-control. That's emotional intelligence. That's real power. But don't confuse non-reaction with apathy. Non-reaction doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care intelligently. It means you understand that reacting to everything is wasting energy. It means you see conflict for what it is, a test of your composure. Sometimes silence speaks louder than confrontation. Sometimes walking away leaves a deeper mark than arguing. Sometimes doing nothing is the strongest move you can make, because reaction is easy. Restraint is strength. It's not about pride. It's about discipline. Here's what to do when conflict hits. Pause before you move. Feel the emotion. Don't fight it. Just don't act on it. Breathe. Create the pause between stimulus and response. That pause is your control center. Listen. Don't react. Let the other side speak. Let them release emotion. The more they talk, the more they reveal. The more you stay quiet, the more you see. Respond strategically. When you do speak slowly, speak clearly. Every word should feel like a decision, not a reaction. And sometimes the decision is to say nothing. That's how you win conflict, not through aggression, but through awareness. The world respects composure. Everyone claims to be strong until they're disrespected, until they're challenged, until they're provoked. But strength without control is weakness disguised as pride. It's easy to raise your voice. It's harder to raise your awareness. It's easy to react. It's harder to remain centered. And that's what separates the average from the elite. Control under fire. The one who stays calm wins, always. So remember this. Silence disarms aggression. Stillness redirects chaos. Calm controls conflict. You don't need to shout to win. You don't need to explain to be understood. You don't need to react to stay powerful. You just need to stay still, stay sharp, and stay silent. You're not running from the fight. You're mastering it. You're not ignoring the world. You're owning your place in it. You have a choice, chaos or control. Choose control every time. Because the one who stays calm controls the argument. The one who listens longer controls the direction. The one who reacts last, or not at all, wins completely. You've learned how to control conflict through composure. You've learned that silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. You've learned that the ultimate form of power is emotional control under pressure. But now it's time to go deeper. Because silence doesn't just protect your power, it also builds your energy. The calm mind doesn't just win, it recharges, refocuses, and rebuilds. You've learned how to stay calm in conflict. Now you'll learn how to use stillness to renew strength. Next chapter, the energy of stillness.
Chapter 8. The Energy of Stillness. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is strength. True silence is not empty. It's full of energy, awareness, and control. Most people think stillness means doing nothing. They're wrong. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it's the mastery of it. When your body is still, your mind recharges. When your mind is still, your power returns. Because the loud lose energy, the silent conserve it. That's the law of life. You've been taught to always be moving, always chasing, always doing. But doing is not the same as growing. Movement without purpose is exhaustion disguised as ambition. And the more you chase noise, the further you drift from clarity. That's why you feel drained, not because you're weak, but because you're never still. Stillness is where you realign. Stillness is where you sharpen. Stillness is where you remember who you are. It's not about laziness, it's about energy management. Because focus, creativity, and discipline all come from a calm center. And that center only appears in silence. You have a choice,
You can keep living at the speed of noise, scattered, distracted, restless, or you can slow down, breathe, and regain your power. Because the truth is simple. The more still you become, the more energy you gain. Most people are exhausted because they mistake chaos for productivity. They confuse motion with meaning. They fill their days with endless activity but never experience peace. They run on empty because they never stop long enough to recharge. And what's worse, they think exhaustion is normal. But exhaustion isn't a badge of honor. It's a symptom of imbalance. The mind was never designed to run nonstop. Even machines need rest. Even nature has seasons. The sun rises, the sun sets. The ocean moves, then calms. The warrior fights, then retreats to restore strength. You can't be in constant motion and expect clarity. You can't be in constant noise and expect wisdom. Stillness is not optional, it's essential. Think about this. Every great thinker, every great creator, every great leader has had one thing in common: moments of deep stillness. Marcus Aurelius wrote in solitude. Einstein thought in silence. Monks meditate. Athletes visualize. Warriors breathe before battle. Why? Because stillness is not a break from power. It's the source of it. In stillness, you connect to awareness. In awareness, you find control. And in control, you find energy. That's the sequence. When you're still, you start to notice things you missed before. You see patterns. You hear intuition. You feel energy shifting. Stillness is how you learn to listen, not to others, but to yourself. Because your inner voice is quiet and the world is loud. You'll never hear it until you silence the world. That's the key. If you can't be still, you can't be self-aware. And if you can't be self-aware, you can't be self-controlled. That's why stillness isn't spiritual fluff, it's mental armor. Let's get practical. How do you build the energy of stillness into your life? You build it through repetition. You build it through practice. You build it through discipline. Here's the daily ritual. Stop, breathe, observe. 3 words that can change your life. Stop what you're doing. Pause your movement. Pause your noise. Step out of the automatic rush. Then breathe. Deeply, slowly, intentionally. Because your breath is the bridge between chaos and calm. Finally, observe. Notice what's around you. Notice what's inside you. Don't judge it. Don't fight it. Just see it. This is not meditation for monks. It's training for warriors. It's mental conditioning for people who live in the storm but refuse to drown in it. You can practice it anywhere, at your desk, in traffic, during an argument, before sleep. No equipment needed. Just awareness. Do it until silence feels like home.
Here's what happens when you master stillness. Your reactions slow down. Your thoughts organize themselves. Your body relaxes. Your decisions become cleaner. Because energy is no longer wasted on noise. You stop pouring strength into things you can't control. You stop chasing validation, approval, and attention. You start conserving energy for what truly matters. Stillness makes you efficient. Stillness makes you powerful. Stillness makes you dangerous, because now you move with precision. When others panic, you pause. When others speak, you listen. When others react, you observe. That's the power of a still mind. Let's be honest, staying still in a chaotic world takes courage. People will mistake your calm for coldness. They'll confuse your peace for passivity. Let them. You don't need their permission to be still. You don't need their validation to go quiet. While they drain themselves chasing noise,
you'll be recharging in silence. While they'd burn out chasing opinions, you'll be refueling your mind. They'll run, you'll rest. They'll scatter, you'll focus. They'll fade, you'll rise. Because you understand what they don't. Energy is currency, and stillness is how you save it. Stillness isn't something you find once. It's something you build daily. It's a discipline. It's a practice. It's a way of life. It's not about avoiding people. It's about avoiding chaos. It's not about escaping the world. It's about mastering your state within it. When you become still, you don't disappear. You become more present. You stop reacting to everything. You start responding with purpose. Stillness doesn't make you less alive. It makes you fully alive. That's the shift. You have a choice. You can live like everyone else, noisy, distracted, drained. Or you can choose the path of silence, aware, disciplined, unstoppable. When you live in noise, your energy leaks everywhere. When you live in stillness, your energy builds like pressure, and when you release it, it hits with force. That's why the silent win more. They can serve, they calculate, they strike with precision. They move less, but they move with intent. And that's how they dominate, quietly. So remember this. True silence is not emptiness. It's awareness. It's control. It's energy. Every time you stop, you recharge. Every time you breathe, you reset. Every time you observe, you grow. Stop, breathe, observe. Repeat it until it becomes automatic. Repeat it until the world's noise no longer shakes you. Repeat it until stillness feels like home. That's how you rebuild your energy. That's how you regain your clarity. That's how you reclaim your power. You've learned now that stillness is not rest, it's readiness. You've learned that silence isn't empty. It's full of strength, awareness, and control. You've learned that the loud burn out, but the still endure. But there's one final transformation left. Because silence doesn't just build peace, it builds presence. And presence is the rarest form of power in a noisy world. You've learned to be still. Now you'll learn to radiate that stillness. Next chapter, Mastering Presence, the Quiet Confidence.
Chapter 9. Mastering Presence, the Quiet Confidence. Confidence doesn't shout. Confidence doesn't beg to be seen. Confidence simply is. You don't need to prove anything when you are something. That's presence. And presence is one of the rarest forms of power in the world. Real presence doesn't come from how loud you are. It comes from how still you are. It's the quiet confidence that says, I know who I am. I know what I bring. I don't need to convince you. That's the energy that changes rooms. That's the energy that makes people listen before you even speak. Presence is not performance. Presence is alignment. It's when your words, actions, and energy are all saying the same thing. It's when you walk into a room and without a sound, people feel your focus. They feel your composure. They feel your certainty. That's not arrogance, that's mastery. You have a choice. You can keep chasing validation, explaining yourself, defending yourself, proving yourself. Or you can stand still, radiate certainty, and let your silence do the talking. Because silence builds presence, presence builds respect, and respect builds influence. That's the sequence. Let's make one thing clear. Presence is not about being seen. It's about being felt. Some people enter a room and create noise. Others enter a room and create gravity. The difference is discipline. The noisy person is fueled by insecurity. They need attention to feel alive. They chase approval because they don't believe they deserve it naturally. But the quiet one, the one who moves slowly, speaks calmly,
and holds eye contact without flinching, that person commands attention. Not by chasing it, by earning it. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You just need to be grounded. That's the key. Think about the people you remember most, the ones who left a mark. They weren't always the funniest or the loudest or the most charismatic. They were the ones who made you feel something. They carried themselves with calm certainty. They didn't rush their words. They didn't fidget. They didn't overshare. They were fully there, physically, mentally, emotionally. That's presence, and it can't be faked. Because presence is not an act. It's an outcome of awareness, silence, and self-respect. Presence begins with stillness. Stillness in your body, stillness in your breath, stillness in your mind. When you are centered within yourself, you stop leaking energy. You stop reacting. You stop seeking. Instead, you become. Your energy settles. Your focus sharpens. Your confidence solidifies. People can feel that. They may not understand it, but they sense it. That's why presence is magnetic. Not because you're forcing attention, but because you're radiating stability in a world addicted to chaos. Here's the truth. Most people can't sit in their own energy without needing to fill the space. They talk too much. They move too fast. They fidget, joke, and over-explain. They confuse movement with value. But real presence requires patience. It requires stillness. It requires faith in your own worth. You don't need to chase attention when you know you deserve it. You don't need to talk over people when you're already heard in silence. Because it's not about arrogance, it's about discipline. The discipline to stay calm when others rush. The discipline to stay grounded when others perform. The discipline to trust your quiet power. Let's make it practical. Here's how to build quiet confidence. Real, unshakable presence. Step 1. Control your body language. Stand still, shoulders back, head high. Don't fidget, don't over-gesture. Every unnecessary movement weakens your message. Every moment of stillness strengthens it. Because your body speaks before your words do. And if your body looks scattered, your energy feels scattered. Move with intent. Walk slowly. Breathe deeply. Own your space. Step 2. Slow your speech. People who lack confidence talk fast. They rush to fill silence. But the confident pause. They let their words land. They let silence emphasize meaning. Your pauses are power. They show control. They show patience. Remember, silence builds tension. Tension builds attention. Attention builds influence. Speak less, say more.
Step 3. Be fully present. Put the phone down. Stop planning your next line. Stop thinking about how you look. Just be there. When you listen with full attention, you project power. When you look directly at someone and truly hear them, they feel your presence instantly. Because attention is rare, and what's rare is valuable. Be where your feet are. That's how presence becomes visible. Step 4. Hold eye contact. Not to intimidate, to connect. Eye contact is energy. It says, I'm here, I'm confident, I'm not hiding. Hold it calmly, without aggression, without fear. Because confidence doesn't look away first. Confidence stays centered. And when you hold that energy, people will feel it before you speak a single word. Step 5. Stop explaining yourself. You don't need to justify your silence. You don't need to defend your decisions. You don't need to prove your worth. Every explanation drains your authority. Every apology for existing lowers your power.
You don't need their permission to be confident. You don't need their approval to be respected. Stand in your truth, quietly, calmly, completely. That's the discipline of presence. Remember this: people trust those who trust themselves. If you're calm, they'll calm down. If you're confident, they'll listen. If you're grounded, they'll follow. Your energy sets the tone long before your words do. So before you walk into any room, remind yourself, I don't need to prove anything. I just need to be. That's quiet confidence. And the more you practice it, the more it compounds. Because presence isn't built overnight. It's built in every interaction, every moment of stillness, every pause before speaking, every breath you take before reacting. That's how quiet becomes powerful. That's how confidence becomes effortless. That's how presence becomes natural. You stop performing confidence and start embodying it. You have a choice. You can keep chasing attention, talking louder, trying harder to be seen, or you can slow down, speak less, and let your energy do the work. Because people forget what they hear, but they remember how you made them feel. And presence makes them feel something rare: certainty. You don't need a spotlight when your energy is already luminous. You don't need to force your way into rooms when your composure opens doors for you. That's the power of mastering presence. So remember, you don't need to prove anything when you are something. Silence builds presence. Presence builds respect. Respect builds influence. That's the chain of quiet power. The louder the world gets, the more powerful quiet confidence becomes. You don't fight for attention, you attract it. You don't demand respect, you command it. And when you master presence, you don't walk into a room looking for validation. You walk in knowing you are the validation. You've learned now how silence becomes energy, and how that energy transforms into quiet confidence. You've learned that presence is not about being seen, it's about being felt. You've learned that calm, grounded certainty will outlast any performance. But there's one final lesson, one that takes your silence, focus, and presence to the highest level of control. It's not just about confidence, it's about detachment. Because true power is not in what you can hold, it's in what you can walk away from. You've mastered presence. Now it's time to master freedom.
Chapter 10: The Power of Walking Away. The ultimate act of control is detachment. Walking away is not weakness. It's strength in its purest form. Because anyone can fight, anyone can argue, anyone can react. But very few can walk away. Very few can stay calm when provoked. Very few can say, this no longer deserves my energy. That's real power. You master yourself when you no longer need to prove yourself. You win when you stop playing games that cost your peace. That's the key. Most people believe control means holding on to people, to things, to outcomes. But control isn't about holding on. Control is about letting go. Letting go of the argument that doesn't change anything. Letting go of the approval that doesn't define you. Letting go of the chaos that doesn't serve you. Because not every battle deserves your words. Not every conflict deserves your energy. Not every situation deserves your presence. You have a choice. You can waste your strength trying to fix noise, or you can walk away and find peace. And walking away is not quitting. It's choosing your focus. That's mastery. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means emotional independence. It means you care, but you don't cling. You give, but you don't chase. You engage, but you don't depend. Because dependence is weakness. Attachment to what's out of your control will always drain you. The one who can walk away is free. The one who can't is trapped. You don't own peace until you can walk away from anything that threatens it. Let me be clear. Walking away doesn't mean you don't value people or situations. It means you value yourself enough to protect your mind. When you walk away, you're saying, my energy is sacred. My peace is expensive. My focus is mine. You're not abandoning, you're evolving. Because detachment is not coldness, it's clarity. It's the ability to see without obsession, to care without losing control, to love without losing yourself. Look at the strongest people you know. They don't chase, they don't beg, they don't explain. They let the world come to them because they understand this simple truth. You attract what aligns with your peace, not what drains it. When you stop running after noise, you start hearing silence. And in that silence, you discover strength. That's what walking away gives you, your energy back. Here's the truth. Every time you react to something unworthy, you feed it. Every time you argue with the fool, you become one. Every time you hold on to what hurts, you delay your healing. You can't evolve if you keep returning to the same chaos. You can't grow if you refuse to release what's keeping you small. The world will test you again and again, and your response will define your power. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to correct every lie. You don't need to fix every broken thing. Sometimes the most strategic move is no move at all. That's the discipline of detachment. Here's how you practice it. Step 1. Recognize when energy is being stolen. Pay attention to how you feel after certain people, situations, or habits. If you always feel drained, that's your signal. Not everything that demands your attention deserves it. Learn to say no. Learn to walk away before you burn out. Because energy leaks are silent killers. Protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. Step 2. Choose silence over reaction. When someone disrespects you, insults you, or misunderstands you, stay silent. You don't owe anyone your anger. You don't owe anyone a reaction. The more they push, the calmer you become. That silence will break their power, because they wanted your reaction, not your reasoning. You can't argue with silence. You can only be humbled by it. Walk away from petty energy. It's not about ego, it's about discipline. Step 3. Trust what leaves. If someone walks away from your life, let them. If an opportunity fades, let it. If a door closes, let it. You don't need to chase what's not meant for you. What's yours will never require begging. What's aligned will stay naturally. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. Walking away from what's not meant for you creates space for what is. The universe can't give you better if you keep gripping what's breaking. That's the truth most people never learn. Step 4. Practice emotional distance. When chaos hits, don't jump in, step back. Detach mentally before you detach physically. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Is this mine to fix? Most of the time, it's not. You're not responsible for everyone's chaos. You're responsible for your calm. You can't control what they do. You can only control your distance. And distance is clarity. Clarity is peace. Peace is power.
Let's be honest. Walking away takes courage. It takes maturity to say, this is not worth it. It takes strength to leave when your ego wants to stay and fight. Weak people cling to chaos because it validates their emotions. Strong people walk away because they've outgrown the need for noise. It's not about pride, it's about discipline. The discipline to prioritize peace over drama. The discipline to value control over comfort. The discipline to walk alone rather than stay surrounded by confusion. You have to know this. The ability to walk away is the highest form of self-respect. It's saying, I'm no longer addicted to approval. I'm no longer bound by fear. I'm no longer chasing things that don't align with who I am becoming. When you can walk away from what you want, you are free.
Because power isn't in possession, it's in detachment. So ask yourself, where are you giving too much energy? What noise are you still entertaining? What chaos are you still attached to? If it doesn't give you peace, it's a distraction. If it doesn't help you grow, it's a test. And when you feel that pull to fight, prove, or fix, pause, breathe, then walk away. That's your new strength. Walking away doesn't make you colder, it makes you calmer. It doesn't make you weaker, it makes you wiser. It doesn't mean you've given up, it means you've grown up. Because the older you get, the more you realize peace is the prize. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to fight every battle that appears. You don't have to carry every burden that's handed to you. You have one job: protect your energy. Remember this: the loud seek attention, the calm seek control, the wise seek peace. And peace requires distance. Peace requires silence. Peace requires walking away. Walk away from noise. Walk toward peace. Walk toward mastery. That's not avoidance, that's evolution. You've learned now that the highest form of control is not in confrontation, it's in detachment. You've learned that walking away doesn't end your power, it amplifies it. Because the one who can walk away from anything controls everything. You've mastered your silence, you've built your discipline, you've found your calm. Now it's time to live it. Every day, every decision, every breath. Walk away from noise. Walk toward peace. Walk toward mastery. That's the true power of silence. That's the end and the beginning of your control. Control is not found in shouting louder. Control is found in mastering this silence between stimulus and response. You've learned the truth that silence isn't emptiness, it's energy. That silence isn't weakness, it's restraint. Every moment you hold your tongue, you build a stronger mind. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you rise above the average. You are no longer a reactor, you are a strategist. You are no longer ruled by emotion, you rule emotion itself. From now on, let your silence speak louder than your words. Let your composure intimidate the undisciplined. And when the world gets loud, stay quiet, stay focused, stay in control. The power is yours. Use it. This is the power of silence.